Good evening, everyone. This is the coaches and coxswains meeting for the New England Rowing Championships held on Lake Quinsigamond in Worcester, Mass. On May 6th. To start off, I would like to introduce the commissioner of the Intercollegiate Rowing Association, Gary Caldwell, to say a few words. Gary?
Thanks, Thad, and thank you for putting this together. They've become a hit on the pre-race circuit since last spring. Thad will introduce the other notables, not that I'm a notable, but the notables on the call in a minute. But I want to thank each of you for taking time this evening to participate in this call. A reminder to a couple of schools, we have 3 schools that have not filled out administrative forms yet, at least as of 4 o'clock this afternoon. I won't name them, but you know who you are, and also 3 schools who have not yet turned in their certificate of insurance. And out of approximately 1,150 athletes, we have approximately 110 who haven't figured out yet how to fill out the waiver. So if you get that done tomorrow, a week late, but at least get it done tomorrow so that we can move on to more pertinent things. My last point, other than the directions that you're going to get tonight, are that I will instruct the officials this weekend to pay very special attention to what goes on at the starting line. This is a championship regatta, and we all expect the local organizing committee, my office, folks who work with me in my office, and the officials that you and your oars people will know what to do at the starting line. What to do means knowing how to get into a stake boat appropriately, and if necessary, how to scull the boat around. If you don't know those 2 functions, you really need to learn them before Saturday. The officials have been instructed to move things along. We're on 10-minute centers. We have a lot of races, and we will not brook incompetence up at that starting line. So be prepared to do your job and allow the officials to do theirs and not have to help you with yours. If we do that, we'll have a much better run regatta and a much more fun regatta. I'm pleased to note that at the women's sprints on Sunday, we had no issues at the starting line with coxswains, and we expect the same from you all this week. Thank you, Thad. Good luck to everybody. We look forward to seeing you in Worcester.
All right. Thank you, Gary. Also with us tonight is our chief referee of the regatta, Ruth McNamara, who will jump in later on in the presentation to give you the finer points of refereeing. And this is obviously taking place at Regatta Point for most of you, which is in Worcester, Mass. Okay, first things first, let's get some housekeeping out of the way. At this time, could all of you please type the school you represent in the chat for the attendance? We'll give that a minute or so. And while we wait for the responses to come in, I ask if at any point in the presentation you have a question, please save it for the end of the presentation and we will answer as many questions as best we can. Okay, awesome. As those are rolling in, we'll just keep moving forward. So, practice. Practice is on Friday, May 5th, between the hours of 1 p.m. and 6 p.m. Most of you will be launching from Regatta Point off of the North Docks. Once you launch, please proceed north, directly to the start up the Worcester shore. You may go to the start outside of the course or in lanes 0 or 1. As a side note, our course is numbered between lanes 0 through 6, labeled left to right as you would look up the course towards the start from the finish. And just as a reminder, there is no pressure on the practice day heading toward the start. As an alternative, there are also crews launching from the DRC this weekend. And crews launching from the DRC must proceed outside the course down the Shrewsbury shore that's outside of lane 6 and head around the finish before making the turn to head north to the start up the Worcester shore, making the turn and heading up with everybody else. Just be aware as you head north of the 1,000-meter mark, if you are staying outside of the course, it gets incredibly narrow. North of the 500 meters, you can see in the map, is marked as a yellow shape. It is very shallow. It is the pump house. It's a red brick building. We do have a buoy out there. Please do not try to go between the buoy and the shoreline. You might lose a skeg. You might regret it. We don't want any of that to happen for this weekend. From the cove north of the 290 bridge, you will then turn into the practice lane. So that's going past the 500 meters. You will go underneath that large bridge that marks the start line, and you will make a loop, and you will go into your lane that you choose to practice. Once again, it's going to go lanes 0 to 6. So as you make the turn and you are facing down the course, looking directly at the bridge, lane 0 is going to be on your right-hand side. Lane 6 is going to be on your left-hand side. Just remember, if you think where you launch from Regatta Point is the Worcester Shore, that's your low side, lane 0. Shrewsbury Shore is the high side. Just a note on practice day, lanes 3 and 4 are for pieces less than 1,000 meters, and lanes 5 and 6 are for pieces greater than 1,000 meters. And at all times, lane 2 is a dead lane. Do not enter or cross it at any time. There will be a marshal in it. Just up and down the course. Just stay out of lane 2. Think of it as the barrier. Going north outside the course, lane 0 or lane 1. In the course practicing, lanes 3 to 6. The course will close to launching crews at 5 p.m. So if you're not launched by 5 p.m., I'm sorry, the launch docks are going to close. And then everybody is off the water by 6 o'clock p.m. on Friday. For race day, similar deal. If you are launching from Regatta Point, you will proceed north. So there are several, just to back up a little, there are several spots where you can launch from Regatta Point, depending on where you are, depending what you know. You've got the North Beach docks, the Regatta Point docks, and I don't think anybody uses the Worcester Public docks, but those are there as well. Any of the docks you launch from, you are going to same thing, travel up the course, you're going to proceed north outside of the course. At no point should you enter a lane. All lanes will be used at some point during the day. Please stay off the course when you're heading north. Please remember, once again, when going past the 1,000-meter mark, it gets narrow. Single file only. And then once again, following up further, north of the 500-meter mark, it is the pump house. It is shallow. Marked with a buoy, very well marked. Please stay away from it. Your best bet as a coxswain is to follow the buoy line without crossing the buoy line. We don't recommend following the shoreline because there are shallow spots around the way. So do the best you can to follow the buoy line. And then once again, just to emphasize it, do not enter the buoy lanes at any point on race day when you're heading to the start. Now, if you're coming from Donahue, it's going to be similar to the practice. However, you have two options. You can choose to launch from the Donahue Rowing Center and go straight across and then go up to the start, or you can choose to go south on the Shrewsbury side for a warm-up. There's a couple of things with that. If you choose to go directly across, we ask you, pay close attention to what's going on at the start line. If there's a race lining up, do not go across. If there's a race coming down, obviously do not go across. Just be very aware of your surroundings and what you do when you're crossing the course. If you do decide to go south and warm up, do not go further than the 1,500-meter mark. Think of that as the furthest you can go, and then turn your 90 degrees, make sure no race is coming down, and then you can cross safely. Same thing Once you get to the Worcester shore, continue going north and just be aware. All the same rules apply. Watch the narrow area at the 1,000-meter mark. Watch the shallows just past the 500-meter mark. And we ask that no race preparation pieces, at pressure pieces, be done past the 500-meter mark, especially as you're entering the cove. Do not have pressure going under the bridge. I will repeat, and I'm sure Ruth will repeat this as well. Do not have pressure going under that 290 bridge. And that 290 bridge is after the shallows. It's the start of the course, and you're going to go through a small span. You'll see when you get there, there's a small span on the Worcester shore. You go between the piers, and that's how you enter the cove. And I may have not touched on it, but the Route 9 bridge at the finish line, both practice day and race day, we don't go beyond. It's a big blue bridge. Do not go past that. Now, going back to entering the start, in the cove, there is a clockwise traffic pattern around 3 large white buoys. Please go around them. Do not go through them. Please also note on the screen the area in the red on the back of the cove. Please do not enter it, as it becomes difficult to hear the starter, and we do not want you to miss your race. There's plenty of space to practice starts, but also please have your head on a swivel and watch for other crews. When your race is called, you will be called to enter the course by the starter, and please be in numerical order, lanes 0 through 6. You will travel, as you can see on the dotted blue line, there will be a pier in the Shrewsbury shore. Actually, I will switch to this because that will explain it better. Once again, you can see this is a view of the 290 bridge sitting in the middle of those white buoys in the cove, looking down the course. You can kind of make out the stake boats. You can see the racing span. You can see the span where you're going to enter on the Worcester shore. Where you're going to enter the start is between that far pier off to the east on the Shrewsbury side. You're going to go between that and the Shrewsbury shore. Once you get past the pier, you will turn 90 degrees, row straight to enter your lane, then spin and back down. Once again, numerical order is important so we don't get in the way of each other and slow the process down. And at this point, I would like to introduce and pass it off to our chief referee, Ruth. Ruth?
Thank you, Thad. Can you hear me? Yeah, okay. It's a pleasure and an honor to be back again this year as your chief referee. I'm excited to tell you that we have a full complement of referees from across the country to join me. So you all should be in good hands this weekend. This is your championship regatta, and we are here for you. But there are a few things I want to point out that we have expectations for you, and then to notify you of a few things. For first aid, we have first aid on the water, at DRC, and at Regatta Point. So if at any time you need a medic or medical attention, make sure you get a referee's attention if you're on the water. Otherwise, on shore, it is at Regatta Point and DRC. Coxswains, for your weigh-ins, we ask you to be in racing uniforms with torsos covered when you come in for weigh-ins. And I think Linda's on the call and she'll go over the procedures there. If you're carrying any dead weight, make sure you have it with you when you launch. And going through control commission, I'd really like to emphasize your coaches have signed off saying that your boats are in compliance with all the safety features. And last weekend, we had quite a few that were not. So I would like to ask all the coxswains on this call to please make sure your heel ties are tied and that your bow balls are on. Our referees will just be doing a cursory review of visually looking at your boats. If they see anything that's out of compliance, they will ask you to correct it before you're able to launch. As Thad was telling you about the traffic pattern on the way to the start, the one thing I want to emphasize, we do have a handful of 7 boat races and we will be using lane 0. So be aware of that when you're launching. If in the period of time you're going up to the start, if there are any races that are coming down with 7 boats, because though you're outside the buoy line, we'd like you away from the buoy line then. And also not at that pinch point at 1,000 meters. Referees will probably stop you there or let you go through and ask you to move to the side a little bit. but just be courteous. We'll stop as races go by, just as you want the others to do for you. And from that, as Thad said, in the top 500 meters from DRC up to the start, no practice starts, no power strokes in there. And when you go under the arch to get into the warm-up area, please paddle through there. There are boats turning. It's a blind spot for you all going through. If you suffer breakage traveling up to the start or in the warm-up area, would you please get the closest referee's attention? We likely will not take you back to the docks at Regatta Point, but if necessary, we'll bring things out to you, or we'll take you into DRC where the coaches there will help you repair anything that's broken. So again, do not try to turn around and go back to the launching area. Thad told you about how the course is numbered and about how to enter the starting area. We will be doing an announcing start. I want you all to know, no one took advantage of this last week, but once you enter the starting area and you are in your lane, you are allowed to warm up in your lane. Just stay within the first 100, 150 meters, and you have to be locked on at 2 minutes. From there, we'll use the announcing start. Breakage is the first 100 meters. Bad rowing is not breakage. Breakage is literal breakage of equipment. In the old packet, it had said that we had a field false start, it's called. So if one crew false started and then the next one who false started, they would be excluded. That is not in the rules. We're using U.S. Rowing Rules of Racing for starts. And so everybody gets their own false start. If you suffer breakage in the first 100 meters, you don't just stop. You stop, you raise your hand, you get the attention of the starter or the following referee. And the purpose of that is, we're not going to stop the race just because you stop. You may have caught a crab or something. That's not breakage. You have to indicate that you want us to stop the race because you have breakage. And Coxswains, that means raise your hand and get our attention. For the body of the race, one referee will follow every race. They'll come in on the course side of that bridge. So at about 90 meters, they'll be pulling in behind the course. And at about 200 meters, the media boat will be pulling in or running alongside the course off your port side. So over on DRC's side during the race. I talked about lanes, using all 7 lanes. The following referees will do their best not to wake a trailing crew, but understand that we have to protect the crews that are in contention to place or advance or win. And therefore, there are times when we do have to move up behind the trailing crews. And so I apologize in advance for that. And let's hope that doesn't happen this weekend. So if for any reason during your race, you feel that your fairness was affected, you need to raise your hand at the finish and have a discussion with the following referee. And you need to tell them what happened, where it happened, and then what resolution you would like. And if you like, you and anybody else involved agree to the referee's ruling, then we go on racing. If you don't agree with it, just ask them to let me know and come in and find me or Thad or Gary, and we'll start the conversation, and the 3 of us will get together and talk it through with you. There's no cool down area on the water, so you'll finish your race and turn and come right back in. And all decisions at this regatta are final. Other than that, if you have any questions, happy to answer at the end, and I wish you all good luck and look forward to great racing and good weather, maybe dry weather.
Thank you, Ruth. It is currently looking favorable for weather, knock on wood. Linda, did you want to go over weigh-ins extra, or are we all set?
Sure. Just a couple of things. Important for the Coxswains to know that when it's time for them to weigh in, based on the schedule that's posted, they should be ready to weigh in their uniform, their shirts and their shorts, or unisuit. Obviously, they can wear more when they're racing, depending on the weather. Health and safety comes first. Coxswains are instructed to bring the weight that they are going to need, if they will need weight, to bring it with them. The regatta will not be providing any kind of weight making devices. So they need to have that, and then be prepared to remember to carry it with them in the event that they have to display it to a referee during the racing. But there is no Friday weigh-in. It is all on Saturday, and the schedule is posted with the rest of the New England documents. I think that's it, Thad. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, and just to run down the course for those of you who haven't been here before, I have a quick little time-lapse video of our course, just so you know we're starting above the start in this video. You're starting really in the cove. We'll go through the stake boats, and that will be the start. But here we go. This is the 290 bridge. It's what we start under, and that is where your start will be. The DRC is off to the left, and then your 500-meter mark is here. So the DRC is kind of 500-meter mark. The 1,000-meter mark is approaching. It was past the pagoda off to the left. Everything is marked with large red buoys like here, 1,500 meters. And then you finish just in front of the Route 9 bridge here. And we'll stop right, apparently keeps looping. But we stop right in front of that Route 9 bridge. Once again, do not go through the Route 9 bridge. We don't have that area of water reserved, so to speak. So we will not go beyond the Route 9 bridge. All right, so after your race is made official, as Ruth was saying, please turn to the Worcester shore, that's your starboard side, and clear the finish. There's no cool down area. Just a couple areas of note. The finish tower, you can see off to the left of this diagram, it has another yellow shape around it. That is also shallow. Please stay away. We don't want to lose skegs. We don't want to ruin boats. Just stay away from it. After you clear the finish, you can then proceed to whatever your docks you came from. If you launched from Regatta Point, everything's right there. Please, we ask you to wait for the dock master to tell you to land. That's key because it does get a little busy down there. If you are heading back to the DRC, you are going to continue up the Worcester shore just like you did for practice. And once you make it, once again, stay outside buoy lanes. Once you make it past the pump house at the 500-meter mark, you're going to stop. You're going to look at the race course. You're going to make sure there's no race coming down. There's no race lined up. And you're going to go straight across the course. And then you can turn to go south on the Shrewsbury shore outside of the lane, and you can dock at the north docks. And in the event of an emergency, first and foremost, follow the instructions of the referees and the public safety officials. We have many public safety officials in boats on the water, fire, police, EMS, the EPOs are out there, and there's also a whole bunch more on land. Listen to what they say and listen to what the referees say. Once again, the referee's first priority out there for all of you is your safety. So please pay attention in the event of an emergency, and just know that if you are above the 1,000 meters, so 1,000 meters to the start, we will if we have to evacuate the course, we will evacuate you to the DRC. If you're from the 1,000-meter mark to the finish, we will evacuate you to Regatta Point. Can't stress enough, just listen to the public safety officials and the referees. And lastly, just to wrap up, please no public urination. Porta potties are provided throughout Regatta Point. Anything, just to be clear, anything brought on the water by a crew must come off with the crew. I emphasize no handing anything to the stake boat holders. They have all been instructed not to take anything, warm-up clothes, water bottles, anything. You take it out on the water with you, you need to take it back with you. And with that, that comes to the end of our presentation. So if you do have a question or anything that came up, please, by all means, enter it in chat. Linda did post the Coxswains weigh-in schedule in the chat if you were interested in it. Dave, question about the chat. What time does Dave? What do you mean by what time does it change? Can you mute yourself?
Sorry about that.
That's all right.
Yeah. Question is the traffic pattern, does it change like first thing in the morning, or does it change at 1 o'clock when the lake is open for practice for everybody?
It's the full day, so it's going to be the full day.
Okay, good deal. That's all I need
All
to know. Thank you so much.
Yep, no problem. I don't see any other questions. Once again, a recording of this meeting will be posted on the Quinsigamond Rowing Association YouTube page. If you can't find it, I will also send a link to Gary, who should send an email blast out to all the coaches if you need it. And if there's nothing else, Ruth, Linda, anything else to add, or? All right. Thank
Safe
you. Yeah, safe travels, and we're looking forward to seeing everybody this weekend. Thank you so much for attending, and we'll see you all this weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.